Hello again. In this video, I want to talk about the linkages between internationalising and strategy, and about how location plays an important role in that dynamic. Now behind me you'll see I'm back in Venice, outside St Mark's Cathedral. Now Venice's wealth was built on internationalising. From the 13th to the 17th century, it was a major commercial centre, especially for silk, grain, salt and spices, and of course art. It was trading across Europe and Asia, and had lands and islands in the eastern Mediterranean, mainly taking control for commercial reasons, such as protecting trade routes from piracy. Perhaps you could call it the multinational corporation of its day. We see commercial interests very much the driver of our current wave of globalisation. It's worth noting that of the world's largest 100 economies, more than half are in fact corporations, although we do need to be careful of such comparisons. But what prompts such firms to internationalise, and what leads to their strategic success? Well, firms are prompted to move activities across the border for a number of reasons. They may be seeking new markets in which to expand, or alternatively they may be looking for efficiency improvements, cost cutting, perhaps outsourcing activities to low-cost labour locations. Or they may be seeking assets, whether that is in terms of raw materials or in terms of know-how. A number of electronics companies have established research centres in Silicon Valley to tap into the knowledge and expertise that is present there. Samsung are one of those companies. Or you may be Unilever, owning tea gardens in different parts of the world, where you can have more control over the working practices and approach to tea growing. Now, if we look at how the approaches to internationalising link back to our 4 perspectives on strategy, you may have noticed that behind many of these reasons there is a focus on activities, linking strongly to the work of Michael Porter. However, across our 4 perspectives of where competitive advantage comes from, we can also see drivers of how organisations succeed when they internationalise. But obviously in terms of Porter's viewpoint and in terms of the resource-based view. From Porter's perspective, what you're looking to do internationally is optimise that system of activities and include in their international operations, whether that's market related or in your supply chain. Whilst in the resource-based view, you're looking to leverage those unique, valuable and rare resources across international markets. Now, from these 2 perspectives, there are some strategy implications. Well, across both of them, the source of advantage is the same. Either you are adopting a consistent value proposition, your choice of customers, the needs you're going to serve, and the relative price position you're adopting, and then aligning all activities of your international operation to that value proposition, Porter's perspective. Or you see the competencies you have as a business being consistently valuable, rare and inimitable across borders, so that the firm gains wherever it is operating. That implies that the context in which you're operating is sufficiently consistent across the geographic scope of the organisation. So you're tapping into similar customer needs. The laws and regulations in the nations you're operating in do not hinder what you're doing, and the operating conditions need little variation. So your approach is one of minimal variation. You're globally integrating your business model to exploit the firm's specific advantage. And you'll see this sort of thinking playing out in high-end brands like Gucci, in pharmaceutical companies like Pfizer, or as we saw in an earlier study unit, the earth-moving equipment manufacturer Caterpillar and the way it services its customers across the world. We can also see it playing out in Boeing and the way its activity system encompasses manufacturers of the various parts of its latest jet airplanes anywhere in the world. There is a link here to the view of the world championed by Thomas Friedman that the world is flat. By that I don't mean flat earthers. What I mean is that the needs and choices taken by consumers and businesses become increasingly similar. However, we don't have to look too far to see that this is not always the case. Take for example what we may see as a commodity, McDonald's hamburgers. When you visit McDonald's in different countries, you find great variation in their menu. It's being adapted to fit the preferences of the local customers. So maybe the world is not flat, it is more lumpy and needs the firm to be more locally responsive. However, that implies a problem. If there are differences and you're entering a new market where you're up against local competition who know that market intimately, you face what is called a liability of foreignness. It is not only the geographic distance that is between your home market and that target market, although that does create problems in terms of communication. But as a business, you have a lack of local experience and knowledge about the way things are done, and you lack familiarity and legitimacy in the business environment and with customers. So you're starting at a disadvantage. Here, you need to think about how do you modify that activity system to fit those new demands, or how do you vary your competencies so that they are valuable in that new market. And you see many examples of just this happening with what you'd think are standard products. Quaker's porridge or Doritos chips being varied between even the US and the UK. Cemex and its global approach to what would seem the commodity of making cement, varying its competencies to match local conditions. Or the way in which LG Electronics enters into new markets by creating new space that opens up opportunities for it in those markets. So those other two views of where competitive advantage comes from suggest different approaches to internationalization. From a dynamic capabilities point of view, it's about what routines and processes you have in place that enable the transfer and modification of competencies as you move them from one geographic space to another. And from the Boycian perspective, what do you reduce or eliminate of your existing business proposition, and what do you increase and create to specifically target that new country and so gain advantage over the local competition? Now, in that, it implies that you need to understand and manage the interplay between the firm and the needs of location, as it implies that the advantage a firm has is going to be shaped by the location, both in which it's developed and in which it's deployed. So the location in which a firm develops is going to influence the advantages that it's gained. That's all part of what Barney talks about as historic circumstances. But then when you transfer those firm Pacific advantages to a new location, the influences of that new location will modify and influence that advantage. And the best companies take advantage of that co-evolution of advantage. Now in the next two videos I'm going to explore both how the location impacts on the development of firm Pacific advantages, and also how companies manage this co-evolutionary process. So I'll see you in the next video.